Good morning, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at another submission by our good friends in Sweden, Tytti and her horse Usko. And I just wanted to say right off the bat here how much better I think he looks than the last time I saw him, and how much longer his neck is getting and stretching. This is the first time I've really seen him really lengthen out from the base of the shoulder and stretch that neck all the way down there like that. And much improved. And just looking at his body, his top line looks better. His belly is pulled up more. You're seeing the flanks come in. Everything is just going much better here. I like how you're keeping him on these big circles. I did look at the second video that you sent. It was pretty similar to this one, so I didn't do anything with that one, since this one pretty much covers everything. I just would say that in the second video that I saw, he did look a little tight when you had him on the small circles. I thought I still saw a little bit of something going on there, but certainly not much. And in this one, where you keep him on the big circles, he looks really good and stretching down and not seeing, you know, much residual from his old shoulder injury. So this is certainly looking good. And as I said, stretching much deeper than I've seen him do before, getting much longer. We really want to see that stretch out from the shoulder. You know, a lot of horses kind of stretch down, but they don't give us that big stretch and really lengthen, because that's what really, remember, over the 2 years' time that it takes to train a horse, you know, to get the basics done correctly, that time the withers begins to pull up through the shoulders and you see the horse change its posture. And I certainly am seeing that in him. I think he looks much better, just basically all the way around. Could be a little more active there behind, but this is not bad at all for the type of horse that he is. And once again, I love how much further down he's stretching in the trot and just staying more active. I'm seeing a little more action in the hocks there. So really good work, and showing a lot of improvement over the last time I saw the horse. And of course, you've done a good job of rehabbing him after his injury. And I do think his canter looks a little better. Now, I wouldn't do it very often still with him. I don't think it looks like it's over his back enough to do him a great deal of good yet. But compared to how it looked in the last videos, this is much better. He's able to stay much more united and swing through behind in the canter, though he's still bracing upwards a bit. So I wouldn't do a whole lot of that. Keep that to a minimum, you know, not even every day, maybe every few days. But this is looking really good. He's stretching really into the contact, and it just looks easier over the ground. He looks lighter than the last time I saw him. You know, he's starting to have a little spring in his step, and that's good. And a difficult thing to achieve with this, you know, type of body style horse. You know, they're a bit heavier, and it takes a little while for them to get to this place, but you're doing a great job with them. Once again, the canter's not bad. Still bracing upwards a little bit, but not bad. I just said I would just keep that to a bit of a minimum. You know, certainly don't canter more than a circle or two each time you do, like you did there, 1 or 2 circles, and then come back to the trot and let him stretch back out again. So just what you're doing there is just about right. Certainly don't keep continuously cantering, and, you know, unless you have a day that he gets so excited that he takes off on you or something and you can't stop him, as we always say. But this looks really good. He doesn't really seem like that kind of horse much. So I still once in a while see a little something, you know, but not much at all. Keep it to these big circles. As I said, I thought I saw a little more, looked a little more off in the other video when you'd get him on small circles, like right there when you but I don't know that that's so much lameness as he's just not really able to go on those small circles. So, you know, I don't think he has enough bend yet, you know, really to be able to do that. And remember, bend is the ability to lift up the back has to come first. You never get lateral bend until you get longitudinal bend, that is bend over the top line, that the horse lifts up. That's what allows the spinal cord to actually relax. You know, if you take your own spine and arch your back really hard, see how hard it is to flex from side to side. Well, the horse is the same way. If its back is down, its vertebrae are locked, and it makes it almost impossible for the horse to bend. And remember, when we talk about bend, we're always talking about the bend in the middle of the horse's back, the length of the horse's body, not bend at the shoulder. So many people that we see today are mistaking pulling a shoulder to one side, or rather bending the neck to one side, as bend. That has nothing to do with bend. When we talk about bend, it's in the middle of the horse's back, behind the withers, where the horse has to bend over the whole length of its body. But much improvement here over everything I've seen before with this horse. Looks like a beautiful summer there. Compared to your last video I saw, it looked quite cold. This looks much better. Must be enjoying the summer. Good walk once again. You know, this is all a little better. It's still a little, like, you should watch those back legs. They look a little bit like they're pulling out of mud, but nothing like they used to look. And it's getting more active. But you're going to see that the deeper you get him to stretch, the less that's going to happen. That is, the less he's going to look stuck behind, pulling his legs up out of the mud, so to speak, as I always say. But that's looking better. That's a little more fluid walk there. And once again, just in general, even though he's a little bit up right there, he's still reaching out further from the neck than I've seen this horse before. From the base of the shoulder, that is. A really good work here. Now, one thing you could do is try to, you see how he's going a little bit with his haunches towards you? Try to get him to yield his haunches away from you. And if you have to do that on a little bit smaller circle, that would be good. But he's always going a little bit, pulling his shoulders to the outside of the circle, if you see that. So try to get him to move those hindquarters away from you a little bit more when you're lunging, so that both ends of the circle, he tends to go around like there. He kind of goes around the corner, but his shoulder is pulled way out to the outside a little bit. So keep trying to move those hindquarters away from you a little more, and that will also help him to engage a little more behind. That is, he'll swing the hind leg under the body a little deeper. But this is looking good, and once again, this is the first time I've seen him where I've really seen a good relaxation through the neck, and at the base of the shoulder starting to stretch out, and that's really a great sign. That's one of the first things we look for, because we don't get them to stretch all the way over the whole top line. We're never going to have the reaction of having the withers pulled up and for the horse to actually change its frame, which is what happens over time when we train horses correctly. That's why that first 2 years is so important, because your horse, unless it's built uphill. Now, of course, a lot of the horses today that are very expensive, they have incredible conformation and they're built uphill, and those horses are very easy to train, because they don't have the physical difficulties that others have, like a human athlete themselves. I mean, it's called talent. But every horse can be developed, to be much better than they are if they've never been developed over their top line. So, we can't make them into something that they're not, but we can make them into the best possible horse that they can be. And in most cases, that's plenty good enough. So once again there, you see how he's still just pulling those hindquarters a little bit to the inside. So just keep working on trying to get the hindquarters a little bit more away from you, though that's a little better there. That's a really good stretch, though. Once again, this is the first time I've really seen this horse, relax and stretch all the way deep into the contact there like this, and just much, much improved. Go back and look yourself at the videos of him previously. I mean, he's got a much more fluid action behind, and I'm even beginning to see a little bit of lift, that is, a little bit of push off the ground, what we call thrust, that has to develop, and that's when the horse pushes up from behind. So many horses we see today are really just dragging themselves along by their front ends. And it's so much more enjoyable to ride than when we get them going from behind and engaged and balanced. But you're doing a really good job with this. And this is much improved over when I saw him before. So keep up the good work. Keep those big circles going. Just try to move those hindquarters. See how he counterflexes a little bit there and tries to push his hindquarters at you. So every time he does that, that's when you want to get after him with the whip a little bit and make him yield those hindquarters a little bit more to you. Think about it, that's how horses actually discipline each other. If you watch whoever's the herd head, so to speak, when horses are out in pasture, watch how they move the other horses around by getting behind them. Like they nip each other in that little fleshy area, just where we use the whip. That's why this is so natural, because that's how horses, manipulate each other, so to speak, and control each other, whoever is the dominant horse. And that's what you have to be here, and that's part of getting the horse to yield its hindquarters. Like when a horse is trying to pull its hindquarters towards you on the lunge line, it's basically loading its guns against you. So if, in other words, saying, I'll threaten you with my hindquarters. So getting them to yield that hindquarters is a very important aspect of this. So really, really good job there. This is much, much improved. Keep up the good work. So now we're getting into the second video here. And once again, the same thing about the lunge line. Everything is just looking really good here compared to when I saw him before. Maybe your video work is a little better in this one. So we can maybe see him a little closer up. That's really good. And once again, look how nicely he's stretching deep into that. Now you can see when he walks by there, there's still a bit of a hole behind that saddle. So know that over time, that's going to fill up. Now that you have him back to work regularly, that should begin to happen. But just generally the way he's moving, even his walk here. Now once again, does he look like some big 17-hand warm blood swinging over the ground? No, but for him, he looks really good. That's a much better walk than what I saw, however long ago it's been since I saw your last video, but I know we went through this extensive rehab period. So, but he's picking up his feet and putting them down rather than they don't. When I first saw this horse, his back legs looked like they were just being pulled up out of mud all the time. So this is much more fluent. He's stretching much deeper, as I said before, from the neck. That's really good where you want him like that. And notice how as soon as that neck goes down, how much better those hind legs work. So that's the whole point to realize. And really good stretch in the trot here. This is so much better than what I've seen before. He's really now, reaching and really letting that whole neck stretch all the way out. In previous videos, he always looked a little tight to me along the base of the shoulder. So once again, this is the first times I've seen him really want to stretch down and really get over his back. You could make that a little bit more active, but not much, really. As long as he's stretching into it and you're getting what you're getting here, that will continue to improve. In this video, you can see his belly better there since, however you film this is a little better technique. But you can see him beginning to draw up, and that's really, really good. He looks much fitter and leaner and longer. When that neck comes out like that, it's amazing how different the horse looks, isn't it? So once he starts to develop, when you start to bring him up, you'll just bring the pole up without shortening the neck back at all. But this is such a huge improvement. We can see it more clearly in this video. I would say once in a while when he gets on a tight circle, he still looks a little tight there, but I don't know so much that that's really any kind of lameness issue, or like right there he took a little step when he came around a corner kind of sharp there. But he's also a horse that should be on, at the minimum 20 to 30 meter circles, the way he's moving. So I wouldn't expect him to really be able to make those tiny little turns and be able to maintain balance and engagement to the back. But this is really good. I mean, this is so much better than I've seen before. Now he's completely releasing. So you're really on your way to getting there now with this. And if you can keep him sound now, you're going to see him develop wonderfully. Of course, I know winter's coming, so you're going to be back to the snow here pretty soon, I guess. But keep up the good work through the winter as best you can. But compared to what I've seen, I'm loving this. Once again, you see him go by there, you see that kind of dip behind the saddle there up to his hips. That's all going to change. So now that you get this full stretch all the way down, you'll begin to see the withers begin to pull up through the shoulders over time this next year. You'll see that hole behind the saddle begin to fill up. That will tell you he's much stronger across his back. But once again, even this walk, I mean, this is really a nice walk you're getting here. It's regular, once again, it doesn't have that feeling like he's, stepping on, fly paper or something and have to pull each foot up. But this is much more fluent and much more over the back than I've seen before with him. So great job. Love this. I love how you're keeping him on these just big circles. Once again, just be aware that he yields those hindquarters a little more to you. See how he pulls out the shoulders a little bit. So keep trying to work the hindquarters. Even right there, you're kind of walking in a straight line there, which is okay, but just keep asking to push those hindquarters away from you just a little bit more as you can. Same thing there. You see how he kind of pulls that shoulder to the outside. So just keep working on just trying to get both ends on the same circle, and you'll see he'll be bending more. So anytime you lose the stretch, he's probably pulling the shoulders to the outside. So every time you see him kind of hollow and come up a bit against the shin bone, just send him on out there again. Try to move those hindquarters away from you and see if he doesn't just stretch back into the contact. There, better activity there now. And that's really the way you should use the canter with him, not doing much of it, but if you need, sometimes with these type of horses, a little canter gets them, moving a little bit, a little more excited in the brain, so to speak. They get a little more natural sense of wanting to move forward, and you come back to your trot and just a little better. So that's the way to do it. And once again, his canter has improved a lot. It's still not great, you can still see him pulling up there and hollowing a bit. So don't do a whole lot of that. As I said, you're not more than a circle or two around at any given time. But his trot always seems to look like it gets him a little bit activated, and that's a good thing. So you can use it in that way. Just don't do a whole lot of it and keep it on really big circles when you can. Once again, the biggest thing is just trying to get him to yield those hindquarters a little bit. That'll help you get more bend and keep him more consistently over his top line. But really good here. Now this is getting to be much more active. I'm loving this. There's some swing in that. Look how much deeper he's tracking under the body. There. And actually he yielded. That's much better. He started to yield a little bit right there before you brought him back to a walk. All good though here. Much, much improved. And that's just the way, you know, with young horses, or when I say young horse, of course, I mean any horse that isn't fully trained. But just let him stop like that. Don't ever jazz. You know, I'm working with one right now that the trainer has, you know, yanked on the reins, you know, and tried to make the horse stop up short, you know, on the lunge line, which is just the dumbest thing you can possibly do, because all it does is put pressure on the horse's legs. It's like slamming on your brakes in the car. You know, you only get to do it so many times before the brakes wear out. It's, you know, it's just like this Western stuff with all these sliding stops and these reining horses these days. You know, if you remember, like a real working cowboy, you know, would have used those skills, you know, once or twice a year, and then the horse would have had time to rest. But these poor horses that are being shown this way, where they're just constantly being jerked up and made to, you know, do these rigid stops in their back line, well, they're all going lame at a very young age for that very, very reason, you know. In many ways, I think it's too bad that veterinary medicines have come up with so many band-aids they can put on these days of injecting joints and this kind of thing, because it's why, you know, we have all these horses, you know, when they're done, there's no schoolmasters anymore, because their joints are so burnt out from all these injections that they're getting, that by the time, you know, once they're done completely, and they never come back, you know, because the joints have been totally destroyed by all of these injections that people are doing and wrong training. So there's only, you know, every time you inject a joint, you're taking a really huge chance. You know, you're invading, you know, a joint capsule, where, you know, if you just let them off, you would have the same effect. That's what you have to realize. You know, in England we used to have a saying that, you know, never first sign of a leg, you quit. You know, first sign of a leg now, leg meaning, you know, a lameness, people are injecting them and just going back to work. Well, you're just putting a band-aid on the problem. So injection should be your very last resort. If a horse needs to be injected, it probably just needs some rest and to be ridden less severely. Good work in your trot here. This is looking nice. And once again, just his general trot. I mean, everything is, I'd like to see him stretching a little deeper, but his trot is looking more active, more through the back. Now, we want to get him to stretch out the way you had him on the lunge line. He's got a little tighter through the neck, and you see how he pulls that kind of shoulder, kind of what we call turtling. He kind of pulls the neck back into his body. But this is much better and softer. If you go back and compare this with what you had when we started this work, you know, it's much, much, much better. His trot is much more fluent. You can see he's developing a little bit of lift there. And I love how his belly looks. You know, if you look down below your leg there, and how he's beginning to come up, you know, through his waistline, you know, that tells you that the horse is beginning to work through the back. Because when we say work through the back, we also mean work through the core, is what it really means, like taking like Pilates for human beings. So it all works together. The bottom line muscles have to work together and engage, just like your stomach muscles have to work to engage. And of course, that's so important to the horse's digestion. Horses that never get trained correctly, you know, your abdominal muscles, just like for a person, have a lot to do with your digestion. And the same thing is true of the horse. So that's why we see horses that have become distended in their bellies tend to colic a lot, because there's, you know, the muscles themselves aren't helping the digestive process by squeezing and massaging the intestines, which is what those muscles are intended to do. It all works together. So if you have some part that's not working in your system, which meaning the abdominal muscles, you're going to have all kinds of problems intestinally, ultimately, with horses. Good work here, though. He's certainly getting out longer through the neck. Now, this is looking really good there. That little bit I just saw coming down that long side. But just the trot is actually starting to have a little bit of spring to it, and that's really a wonderful thing. You've done a wonderful job with this horse. So again, we'd like to see him stretch a little deeper, and look how much better it looks when we do get that. But just in the bridle and everything else, he's much softer. I mean, he used to just, when we first saw the videos of him, he just looked so inverted, and now he doesn't look like that at all. And when you're riding, he is coming back a little bit, turtling a little bit, but you know, you're getting a much more active trot. There you go, like that. And just he just looks so much softer through the neck. I just don't see any of that bracing that I saw in the first early videos of him. This is really, really good. Now, once again, I'd love to see him stretch a little bit deeper, but the activity is there. You know, he's getting over his back quite nicely there, considering what he can do. But he needs to stretch a little bit deeper in the riding. It might not be a bad idea. You know, if you can trust your footing, riding in the shambone is not a bad thing to do, as long as it's loose, the way it should be correctly connected. That is, it's not going to just force his head down. It wouldn't be a bad idea to try that. But if not, I think you're getting there on your own. I think in due time. You remember that the lunging is the most important thing at this point in a horse's training. Now, if you read the Spanish riding school, they used to lunge for a year before they even got on a horse, you know, which I think is a great idea. They used to do trot work for a year before they ever canter. Then you get on and the horse can canter. So that's the real trick to realize. If you do the work correctly on the ground, you get up and you just ride away. We work babies all the time, and people are always astonished at how, when we get on, we just ride away. Well, we've taught the horse everything from the ground before we get on it. So it isn't a big problem. You know, we never want to be bucking horses out in the nonsense, you know, that people think about horses. You have to get on them and tough it out. But you're doing a great job with this horse. I look forward to seeing your next video. If you keep up the work like you're doing here, we're going to see huge improvement in this horse this year, as I see already from when we first started working. He just looks so much better, and great job of rehabbing him after his injury. So really, really good. Just keep trying to get that stretch a little bit deeper.